We put together a little presentation. First, I want to say my name is Dave Vasilia, and I work with in the digital transformation department. And this is Samuel Jacuinde. He is also working in the same department. He and I have been working together for about 3 years. Before that, we worked together. He was a student assistant, and I brought him up to speed. I had been doing it for chatbots for about 4 years before that. And yeah, he's come along and he added tremendous value to this. I wouldn't be here at this place with this project without him. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm glad we're finally achieved the Tech Talk status. Yeah, so this is our project. It's come a long way, and we're gonna try to do it some justice here. All right, so let me share the screen. All right. So really what I wanted to focus on was, first of all, just getting the information out there about how it works and how to use it, what it does, what it doesn't do. There's been, a lot of users. Like, we have a massive amount of users that goes on forever. And like, we saw a spike in August with about 12,000 or so users, or 12,000 interactions. And so that really like gave us an alert that, we're on the right track with how this stuff works and how it's helping people. And we keep track of all of this. We do an evaluation process for every interaction, which is really arduous. So yeah, we're always in need of help with that. If anybody wants to contribute, we're always ready for that help. So I wanted to address some questions that it's pretty obvious based on the interactions that we should address. And one of these is, how does Ask Cody learn or forget information? That's one of the biggest things that people seem to not get, or they tend to want to experiment with when they start to use the chatbot. And so we have multiple methods for putting in RAG data. And I want to specify that was earlier today. If you were in any of the other presentations earlier this morning with Nabil and Fadi, they were talking about retrieval augmented generation. We employ that technology here in our own form of that. And we've been doing it before it was even called RAG, or even like the industry hadn't really tagged it yet as RAG. We were already trying that. And so retrieval augmented generation is what we use in the back end. We have indexed information from both the website and from data that we just host, or we house in a database, data lake. And that information is accessed through a series of really complex architecture. We'll go over that a little bit. But I just want to specify that the way to get data in is not from the front end. You can't tell it to remember something, and it just won't do that. So I'm going to specify that a couple of times, because it's like people they think that they're talking to a system that's going to adapt to their information later, and it doesn't really do that in the way that you think. So nothing you type in a chatbot is ever remembered, except for that immediate next interaction and a couple after that. So you get like 3, and that's it. Other than that, if somebody else were to come in and talk to chatbot at the same time, it's the same chatbot program, and it's the same experience for every person with regards to the immediate interaction, but it's not going to remember anything that you said or you told it. It doesn't remember your facts or your opinions or anything like that. So when you use the chatbot through the portal, so you have the option to use it through either the portal or outside of the portal on the website. When you use it through the portal, it only knows your role, staff, faculty, student, undergrad, those kinds of things. And that's really important for the conversation so that you can actually engage with that bot in a way that, like, where it knows based on your role what kind of information you're going to be getting, or what specific like domain of context you're going to be presented with based on your role. And we're continuously improving that. Like, I have another alpha build of some other system that uses multiple indexes, and it goes through that whole thing. So each index has its own role, and each index is used as its own retrieval augmented generation RAG. Okay, so does anybody have access to the conversation with Ask Cody? We do. I've read tens of thousands. I don't know, maybe 100,000 conversations. I don't judge. I'm a big proponent of free speech. I don't care what you say most of the time. I'm just going through to make sure that the chatbot works right. That's it. So it's usually either me or Samuel, or we have a student assistant that reads it. So we just evaluate, move on, evaluate, move on. You know, really, that's how it is. And so if you come across an interaction with the chatbot, like if you're using it and you're talking to it and maybe something comes out that you don't think is true or accurate, or you have a question about that and you want to talk to one of the humans in the loop, which is us, feel free to reach out to us. There's a link at the bottom of the chatbot window where you can click that. You can find our information, or you can just ask the chatbot and it'll tell you who built it and how to contact us. And so, yeah, that's the gist of that in terms of, like, you know, I wanted to address the questions first because it seems like if people could kind of spread that information around, it would help a lot of people. We've seen lots of interactions, hundreds, where people seem to want to teach it something. They want to tell it or give it a question, and then shortly, right at that same blob of text, there's an answer to that question. Like, they're trying to give it a question and an answer at the same time, and they think that it's learning, because then later on when they ask it, if it knows that, you know, within that three interactions, it will know that only because you told it that third time, or, you know, those three times before, and then it will just pretend to know it, but it'll only don't know it for that one interaction. And then and for you, carrying on, depending on how many times you want to change contexts, it just keeps a rolling window of that three. And so if you were to start another session somewhere else or in another platform, whatever, or if somebody else started that session from another computer, they could ask it that same question that it answered maybe correctly for you, but it wouldn't know that information because it doesn't have access to that information, and it isn't part of its index for its retrieval augmented generation. In order for it to become a part of its index, we are the curators of that information, and we hold that that index under, you know, strict security and everything. We always are making sure that it's giving the correct information, and that's our biggest concern, is just making sure that it doesn't, you know, start putting out misinformation. And we need your help. If you know anybody who monitors the website and moderates it, checks to make sure that there's correct and current information on the website, those people are key and instrumental in providing the core fundamental foundation for the chatbot and the interpretation of our processes, our facts, our events, you know, everything that you can pretty much ask it. So lately we've been focused on trying to improve that information, and part of that continuous improvement effort really it comes down to the fact that people are asking continuously more complex information from the chatbot. Their conversations are becoming very detailed and very specific. And so the more of that we get, the more we end up with let's see.
I just want to throw out there that the chatbot is only as good as the website information that the chatbot is built on top of. The chatbot mostly relies on accurate, well-written, clear website information from the campus in order to build up its knowledge base.
Right. Yeah. So lately we've seen an increase in this issue right here. That we call this this is an issue. This is the biggest issue. User errors are like when someone goes in there and they want to talk about a different university, or they just start saying nonsense and just typing letters. Then that's a user error. This is this was a report that was pulled this morning that I have automatically sent to my email. The current one is actually we've already done the evaluations for this week, but there's more coming in constantly. So I'm sure it's being used right now, and it's in real time. We see everything in real time. So this 17% usually goes up to about 20 after we're done with the evaluations, which represents the amount of information that the chatbot is having conversations with people about, that it really doesn't have a representation on the website, doesn't have a representation in the database, doesn't have representation anywhere. And yet people are still asking it these questions. We've triaged this, and we're trying to nail it down, and we're constantly in communication with departments where we find lots of missing information or space where this information isn't found. There is a catch-all system that is the latest from Google, which basically looks at the whole CSU. It looks at other universities. It looks at the world of information that Google has. It's 25 years old. And it takes all of that information and it calculates what could possibly be the correct answer for what that person's talking about. And it's scary how accurate it is. That's what we're using to kind of spackle in and fill in the stuff that the university doesn't represent, that we feel like it should, and the people who are asking and interacting with the chatbot also feel like it should. So we get a handle on that, and what we really want to do is have a conversation with these departments and the entities that are front-facing around campus to help potential students, current students, alumni. I mean, the majority of our audience for this application are the students, and they really use the heck out of this thing. And you can see where they're getting a lot of benefit from it. So we're impressing upon these departments that when we identify areas where the website is falling short or the data is falling short for answering the questions and addressing the issues that these people are having, we want them to be aware of this. We want them to look at it, and we want them to go in and just type something up. It doesn't have to be a question answer. It could just be a blurb. You know, we have a few examples. If anybody's interested, we can talk about that. We can make future plans and have conversations with them. But this is the gist of us trying to fix this, because the programming is there, the infrastructure is there, the capacity for all of this is there. It's very low cost. We are essentially a vendor. We've built this ourselves. This is not some other third party or anything. Although we are using cloud technologies to host, and we are using APIs that are associated with large language models that we didn't train because we don't have $100 million to make one. We are using these third parties in kind of a manufacturing way, where we started our own car company and we got wheels from this company and we got an engine from this company, and but the car is ours. We put it all together ourselves, and we're selling it as a whole unit. Not really selling it. We're giving it away for free right now. And it's here. So it's free to use. It doesn't discriminate against it doesn't matter who you are as long as you have access to the internet. And so it doesn't matter about socioeconomic status. It doesn't care about race, gender, any of that. It just, you open a website, it's a little icon and you can use it, and it's AI. And we do have limitations on it where it can't help you with your homework and things like that. It can't do any kind of big research help or test to see if certain information came from AI or things like that. It just answers questions about Kelsey San Bernardino and about the admissions process, the financial aid process, anything having to do with My Coyote. And it does a really good job of all of that. So these are just some of the reports, not really that important, but it kind of shows that there's, like, this one is a breakdown of the originating source for the conversation. You can see where the My Coyote portal is probably the top, I'd say almost 60% of the interactions. And then it just, it slices off from there. This has been kind of a slow week comparatively. Last month was just on fire. Everybody and everyone was using this thing, and it was just jumping off the charts. We always want to make sure that we try to keep a handle on the interactions, and that's one of the biggest challenges for us, is to try to maintain the infrastructure and do development and continuous improvement and using the latest libraries for everything. And then at the same time, looking back here and making sure that everything's working the way it should, and that people are getting the experience that the best experience that we can possibly offer them with the data that we have and the current technology that we have. So you can see sometimes we have trends that we like to recognize, and then we're trying to aggregate reports to make sure that when the year goes on, that we see those ebbs and flows of the different types of information that people are looking for and the types of content that they're interacting with, so that we know when the new term comes up and the new ebbs and flows come up, that we can match that with the data that we're being given. And so calendar dates, event dates, event processes, things like that, that people all have lots of questions about. They want as real time of information as possible. We're always trying to stress, making sure that the data curation process is ongoing and continuous for all that kind of stuff. Because when people come in here and they ask for, when is this, when is that date, when census, when is last day of school, when is the last day I can turn in whatever projects or anything like that, that's the kind of stuff that they ask. And the more information that we have from the people that are hosting that information or housing it or are responsible for it, the better off this system is, and the better it can help everybody. So like this one, you can see where admissions operating systems, they had a big spike this week. It's coming up to where they're going to be accepting admissions for the next year, starting in fall. And so beginning of October, I think, is where they start taking in applications and start reviewing them and accepting admissions. So a lot of people were coming and asking those questions. So recruitment's a big thing because our enrollment is down. So trying to improve enrollment and trying to drive that up and give people more of a forum for those discussions beyond just the admissions department, because the admissions department, they get really busy with a lot of redundant questions that are just continuous over and over again. So this offsets that. Hopefully, we're trying to make sure that when people come in and they start asking those redundant questions, that this has all of the content and the knowledge and the ability to kind of take in however someone wants to word that information, and or word those questions. Because when they word those questions kind of with their own flavor, that's where you run into trouble with a system where you just have canned responses. And this is why we have to use a generated response, because sometimes they misspell things or they use words out of order. They come in with different languages a lot of times, and this can handle all of that. It sorts out what they mean, it understands it, it matches it up with our retrieval generated information, and then it does a fantastic job from there. So this, I just wanted to go real quick, is our architecture. It's part of it. this is kind of an older version of our architecture. We just revised everything recently. We're not using BigQuery in the same way. We still are using it, but we're not using it the same way. We're using Firestore now. We're using a bunch of other stuff. So there is a lot more to, and this is as low or as deep into this as I can get for security reasons, because we just don't want to expose too much of our architecture to the general public for security reasons. And so we have to maintain all of this infrastructure, and we build a series of APIs that interact really well with each other through a bunch of programming, probably a few thousand lines of code. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of research that goes into continuously finding out what the next thing is. Like, what is the thing that's going to make this jump off the page even better? What's going to make the AI even more 100% accurate as it possibly can be with the data that we have and the information. And this is a continuous thing, right? So it's like, this is what I'm experimenting with now, where I have multiple data sets. I have data stores that I can continuously add data stores, and then I can actually go into each data store and I can design the interaction, the handoff from one data store to another within the same chatbot. So right now we have one data store, and we have some unstructured data sets that we've been able to compile into it and use that for the retrieval augmented generation. This process here is going to allow me to do multiple data sets with multiple components for each data set. And then I'm going to be able to configure each data set to kind of talk to the other, to sort out which information that person should get. And what I mean by that is, so let's say a person who is an international, and they're a student, they're undergrad, and they also are going to try to take classes at Palm Desert, right? So you have all three of those things. That's a very unique case. There's not a lot of that. That's not top of the bell curve, but those are the kind of people who come into the chatbot and want to get help because they don't know how the process works. The process is totally different for them. In terms of being international, they have to, do things like with an I-20, and they have things where they have to, F1, J1, they have to figure out their student visas. They have to, maybe get a work permit, things like that. So there's a lot of, and then the language barrier is an issue as well. And so this system has the ability to communicate in whatever language they are comfortable with. And then it could match it up with their individual roles for each of those scenarios, and then calculate the correct response based on our data that comes from the website, comes from any database that we have, that we can map to these indexes. And then it gives them a walkthrough step by step on what they need to do and how they need to do it. And they can get it in their own language. So there's no ambiguity, there's no misinterpretation. It's going to save them time. It's going to save them a lot of effort. And, this kind of thing could really be instrumental in reducing the friction of our administrative processes for anybody. As long as we have the data organized, we know the rules in between each component of the data, and we're able to do the programming correctly, they'll be able to communicate with this chatbot and have, all the things they want. So there's, I just wanted to do this draft real quick, show you guys like kind of how it works individually. All right, so this is our test dashboard, and this. So I wanted to demonstrate. This is outside. Like if you were to go to admissions or you go to financial aid, one of those, you're presented with this widget. And with this, you're given an introduction page. Now, the chips they come from a test or a bank of chips that we programmed. they are specific to the website that it's on. So if it's evoked from financial aid, you get financial aid chips. If it's evoked from admissions, you get admissions. And so, yeah, these chips are just things that you can click on that are just easy, intuitive things that you probably would be looking for if you were coming to that website. And so we've kind of randomly selected those based on that. So you can ask it any question here, like how can I apply? And, it's going to take a few seconds. This is where I'm always monitoring this, making sure that this system runs as fast as it can, because it's doing a lot. It's looking at data sets, it's looking at multiple data sets, and it's looking through retrieval augmented generation from two different AIs, plus it's calling out to OpenAI and it's verifying the conversation. It's also pulling data from BigQuery based on your previous conversations and all that stuff. So this is a generated response. It's 100% generated. This didn't come from a canned thing. We didn't, put this into, any kind of a system that just spits out the same thing over and over again. We talked about this to make it easier. If we really like a response, we can do that. We can make a canned response that's like, you're guaranteed to get this every time. The problem with that is, though, if the data changes, then we have to curate those canned responses. If the process changes or something, and somebody changes something on the website, like the admissions website, it automatically would adapt to those changes with the current infrastructure. And so by indexing that website, we automatically would get the latest correct information based on the authoritative source of that information. So that's what we're looking for. So you see the question that I just asked here. I'm asking this in our dev system. This is how it looks on our evaluation side. So when we evaluate every one of these interactions, this is how we see it. This is how we interpret what the person is saying and how we understand the process of it actually going through each one of these AIs, right? So when the AI has been given this person's query, you can actually see what Vertex came up with, and you can see what Filter came up with. And then the output itself here is what GPT did when it got, so it was like, okay, I'm looking at any previous conversations, yes or no? What does it look like? What does that look like? Then it's looking at Vertex and it's going, okay, what does Vertex have for me? Then it looks at GRT, and GRT usually has a response. And it looks at all that information, it looks at its rules, and then it goes, this is the best I can do with all the stuff that you gave me. You gave me a lot, and I calculated, figured it all out, and this is what I'm going to present to you. We use the latest version of everything. We use the latest version of Vertex, we're using the latest version of OpenAI, we're using the latest version of GRT. So, and we're using the latest version of the information that's actually on the website, and we're continuously on that treadmill to just make sure that we have all of this data. It's all at the forefront, and we're using this and applying it the best way that we can. And so, if you read this information, to me, it looks good. So I would go in here and I would change this evaluation status to evaluated. And if I checked these links, looked at the quality of the response, and maybe there was something missing or something wrong or inaccurate, maybe there was an invalid link or phone number, if the chatbot was just completely off topic, and then we'd figure out why. We go in there and we'd look at it and go, okay, let's reverse engineer what happened here. Why is this link bad? Or why did that information not be presented correctly? Or, did Vertex just fall asleep and not provide anything? Or did GRT have to step in when Vertex didn't provide any information from its table, and just, it didn't have anything? And then we go into GRT and we're like, oh, GRT stepped in and has this, it has that, it came up with a bunch of information. And we have to verify. We look as much as we can. That's all we can do. And then we try to have meetings with advising or admissions or career center or parking or whoever, and we go, is this right? And they're just like, yeah, and it's like, could you put it on your website? Okay. And that's pretty much what that process looks like. And yeah, we just hope for they're receptive to that, and that's kind of how this works. So, um, I don't know. Do you have anything that you wanted to add, Samuel?
I feel like you covered everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the dev test page. I don't know if you guys, if anybody there wants to try it out, you can try it out here, or you can just go. Also, I want to show real quick, and I can also do it in dev. This is the integration with the portal that actually knows me a little bit better. It doesn't know my name. Like, okay, I want to say this. So many people have this question. They're like, how come it knows your name right here at the beginning? This is a completely different program. Totally different API call, different system in a different part of the cloud that only knows my first name, and that's it. And it's not AI. This is not generated by AI. This initial default welcome, it's an API call that automatically happens as soon as you evoke it. And that API call does one thing. It generates this response. That's it. It doesn't know your name past that, and it doesn't go anywhere. Like it's stored in a table that we just purge. We purge it every 90 days now, I think. And so your name, your last name's not there, your ID, nothing is there. It's just your first name. It's not sent to any AI, promise. And that is all. So from here on out, when you type anything, so if you type anything here, from here, we give it access to your role. And so if you start asking questions about your role, or outside of your role, like let's say I saw somebody today go in there and they were an alumni, and they're like, how can I get commencement tickets? And the bot was like, as an alumni, you're not just given commencement tickets. You have to know somebody who's graduating, or you have to acquire them through the commencement office. It tried to tell them, you're not in the right role to receive commencement tickets. You're just not that kind of role for that to be expected. And it was right. It's like you matched it up with their role. And so it's the same thing with faculty, staff. If you have multiple roles, like I do, it says as a staff, alumni, and graduate. So it knows my roles. And if I go back in here and I look, yeah, there's my name, there's what I asked, this is my information, and it knows what I am. So it passed the information about right here, in line with its rules to say you are an alumni and a staff and a graduate of CSUSB. And that is the starting point for more actions where we can actually, really get down to the root of things. The other side of it is, and we're talking about this in the future now, where we're going, is to help people who have issues maybe with a hold, or they have a desire to want to meet with an advisor, or they express some kind of concern with maybe their grades or something like that. We can match them up with their advisor. We're trying to work out how we can take them and say, oh, here's your advisor, this is who you should go and talk to right now, and this is the person. So it makes it super easy. It's just like, I can see you're in trouble. Let's help you out. Let's get you, that information for advising, and hopefully save you from, not getting a bad grade or leaving the campus, anything like that. We want to try to help people and identify them in any way that we can in their moment of need for that.